everybody? It's your favorite NBA Yap artist back at it once again. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for myself. If you guys like daily NBA content, leave a like, leave a comment, leave a subscribe. Hype the video, getting close to 10,000 subs. Woohoo! We got a lot to talk about today. It's kind of getting close to actual trade season in the NBA. Some interesting tidbit I read in a Jake Fisher article that he recently dropped was that December 15th is a day that kind of gets talked about a lot in NBA trade circles because it's the first day that guys who signed over the summer can get traded. So a lot of times fans sort of think, oh, well, December 15th, we can trade this guy. Very rarely does it happen. However, it does seem like it might start happening more and more, only because there are provisions in the current CBA where if you trade for a guy by December 16th, you can then trade him again at the deadline. So the Warriors did this with Dennis Schroeder last year, which I found interesting. Do I think we're going to get trades in the next week? Probably not, but it is something interesting to think about. We do have some trade rumors to discuss today, some actual juicy information, some juicy tidbits. So if you guys like this content, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. First, some coffee. Nespresso, you're so good. Thank you, Slightly. You finally found your voice. I found my voice. I'm so proud of you. All right, let's get into it, shall we? This article dropped earlier today on ESPN, the worldwide leader of sports. Shams Charania's inside pass, trade buzz on Anthony Davis, Giannis, and more. We'll talk about some interesting stuff here that I pulled from tweets, but this is the article here. Now, honest to God, the most interesting thing I thought I saw in this article was this tidbit from the Dallas Mavericks section, obviously talking about trading Anthony Davis, whatever. We'll get to that here in a second. But I found this kind of interesting, and maybe this has already been widely known and I just hadn't seen it. Mavericks Governor Patrick Dumont has taken a patient approach since firing general manager Nico Harrison on November 11th. Damn, it's almost already been a month. Dumont has relied on Finley, Riccardi, Coach Jason Kidd, and minority owner Mark Cuban, hilarious, and his front office core, and has given Finley and Riccardi the power to lead conversations on the franchise's future. All right, yeah, whatever, that's fine. A GM search is still expected in the offseason. Is that new information or has that been known? Because I was kind of under the impression that the Mavs would and should hire a general manager before the trade deadline, before they start wheeling and dealing. But this kind of contradicts that, which I find actually very interesting. And it does make me think that maybe they're going to stay in-house. Otherwise, wouldn't you want your GM before you start wheeling and dealing guys at a trade deadline? I mean, I would. Right? If I'm the governor of the team, the owner of the team, I want the next guy I'm going to bring in to be the general manager to have a say in what we're going to do at the trade deadline. Right? So I found that information quite interesting. I don't know if that's something that's already been known, but it's interesting nonetheless. So let's get into some of the other stuff talked about in this article. Obviously, Anthony Davis. It sounds like Rich Paul and Clutch has met with the Mavericks to talk about the potential Anthony Davis trade. One thing that did get brought up in here that I found interesting was that the Mavs, according to this, have not rolled out the possibility of an extension for Anthony Davis. His max extension is 4 years, $275 million, which he can sign next summer. Would pay him $76 million in his age 37 season. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to tell you, which I am actually a rocket scientist, believe it or not, as well as a doctor. It doesn't take either of those things to tell you that this would be a catastrophe. Right? And look, I've defended Anthony Davis time and time again. I think he's a fantastic player. No team should be paying Anthony Davis $76 million a year in his age 37 season, especially not this Mavericks team. So let's just start there. I do kind of feel like this is just lip service. Like, yeah, we're thinking about an extension with you, right? Just to sort of keep tensions at bay and everyone just be a little bit happy. But this would be a catastrophe. No two ways around it. But either way, typically my stance on this was the same with Giannis, the same with AD. Once teams and agencies kind of start talking about what the next steps forward are, whether or not trades could be possible, it does feel like trades usually happen afterwards. I don't know what I would put the odds of Anthony Davis being traded, like actually traded at this deadline. I don't know what I put those odds at just because it's such an expensive contract and it is a big move for a franchise. But according to this report from Shams, the Pistons, Hawks, and Raptors are expected to be suitors for Anthony Davis. Now look at the verbiage there. Expected to be suitors. The fuck does that mean, expected to be suitors? Like, did Shams just pull up ESPN.com, standings, top of the East? Okay, boom, boom, boom. Those three teams, write them down. Because that kind of seems like what's happened here. But nonetheless, I do think, I've sort of talked about this before, and when it comes to an AD trade, an Eastern Conference team makes the most sense, right? Now, there are some teams I think you could find in the West that you could talk yourself into trading it for Anthony Davis, and that's sort of making you a much better team now. Like the Spurs, I think if they got Anthony Davis and AD was healthy with Wemby, that's a very good front court, that could win a lot of games and make a serious playoff push. Now, the thing is, why would the Spurs do that, right? That team's probably not even good enough to beat the Thunder still. But out East, if I'm the Pistons, if I'm the Hawks, if I'm the Raptors, if I'm the Heat, I could talk myself into, hey, if we get Anthony Davis and Anthony Davis is healthy for the playoffs, I can win this conference this year. So that's kind of where it makes sense to me. The Pistons have some interesting trade offers. The only thing with them is I don't know if he fits their style necessarily. When I say that, obviously they're a team that plays hard. They play, defense. They got size. They've got athleticism. So he fits that. It's just assuming they would keep Duren in this trade. What made them so special last year, and they're the 1 seed in the East this year, so they've been fantastic. But what helped Cade so much last year was the fact that they had legit floor spacing next to him. In this scenario, you're just clogging the floor so much more. I just don't see it making much sense for the Pistons. Now, the Hawks and Raptors are kind of interesting. Atlanta would be this weird stylistic choice to just be really big with AD and Jalen Johnson, and I'm sure you'd want Okongwu out there as much as possible. Risha Shea, like you would be a massive team. I'm assuming this trade package, hilariously enough, would have to include KP coming to Dallas, which would be pretty funny, but he is on an expiring contract, so it would make sense. I don't hate this for Atlanta, but if I'm the Hawks, and we might talk about them here more in a second, I'm making a big push for Giannis. I don't know if AD is enough to kind of move the needle for us. A Trae Young for AD trade to me for Dallas just doesn't make any sense. That's not something I want to do if I'm the Mavs. If I'm the Hawks, I'm just like done with the Trae Young experience. It's kind of interesting. Toronto is also a little bit interesting because if they feel like they could package like the RJ and Quickly contracts and flip that into Anthony Davis or Pirtle, whatever, then that's a big upgrade for them. Again, a team that could look at the Eastern Conference and say to themselves, oh my God, if we get 1 month of a healthy Anthony Davis or 2 months of a healthy Anthony Davis, we could win the conference now. We could win it this year. And I think there's some interesting stylistic choices they could go with a guy like AD, assuming he would play the 5, obviously, because Pirtle would probably be gone in this trade. It's just difficult to find the AD trade, man. It really is. I think Miami is a very interesting one. But again, I'll talk about them here more in a second. But I do find it interesting that there are continued rumors that Anthony Davis is on the trade market, and now we kind of have a list of teams. Again, I don't know what this list means. But that's not it for the Mavericks. They are open to exploring the trade markets for AD. We just talked about Gafford, Klay Thompson, and D'Angelo Russell. Again, as of right now, I had to double check this morning. As of right now, the NBA does not allow you to trade active players to the Chinese Basketball League. Otherwise, I do think a D'Angelo Russell trade makes sense, but for the time being, you just can't do it. So I don't know who the suitors would be there. Klay Thompson, I actually do think would have some suitors. He's played much better as of late. His 3-point numbers are shooting upwards for him, no pun intended. And I do think there are contenders across the league who would feel fine giving up an expiring contract or a couple expiring deals, whatever the case may be, to land Klay Thompson to help them for a playoff push with the floor spacing, with the shooting, because it's an incredibly valuable thing. These volume shooters, I talked about this before when Tim Hardaway Jr. was leaving the Mavs, where I was like, dude, this is a valuable skill. It's one thing to have good 3-point percentages, but when you look at Sabonis was a good 3-point shooter last year. He shot twice a game. That's not really doing much for you. Okay, these guys who shoot 10, 11, 12 threes a game, even if their percentages might be 36%, 37%, are valuable players in the league. So teams look at that and they want guys like that. I do think Klay would have a trade market. I don't think it'd be huge. I don't even think you'd get a first probably, but some expiring contracts and second round picks or whatever. Yeah, I absolutely think that could happen. Gafford, talk about him just a tiny bit more in a second, but Gafford obviously is somebody I think could have a fairly robust trade market. Actually, Klay Thompson's looking to play for a contender if Dallas trades him. I mean, some of these reports, it's like, yeah, Doug, I could have said that. And I should have said that. Like, of course he wants to play for a contender. So here's one from Jake Fisher, and this will kind of segue us into some Pacers talk. The Indiana Pacers obviously having a bad season, but that was kind of known before the season started with Tyrese Halliburton out. They let Miles Turner go in a trade. So this was kind of just straight up walk, right? That wasn't even a sign and trade, was it? Let Miles Turner go in free agency. This was always going to be a kind of gap year while they waited for Tyrese Haliburton to recover from his Achilles injury. They're an interesting team. I don't think they're as bad as their record shows. They've just been devastated by injury. Nembhard looks fantastic. Furphy's been back a couple of games. I got to say, I watched that Kings game last night, Pacers-Kings game. Furphy can move around a little bit defensively. I'm kind of intrigued by him long-term. The Benedict Mathurin thing seems like it's kind of headed towards a split just because of stylistic change differences in how he plays and how the Pacers want him to play. I mean, Siakam still looks great. Like, they're a team that absolutely could compete for the Eastern Conference title again next year. So this report from Jake Fisher, or I guess this was from Shams, that the Pacers are actively looking to find their center, their next starting center at this year's trade deadline, which does make sense, right? Now, it does have me wondering, I thought about this a little bit this morning. What about AD to the Pacers? Is that too weird? Does he kind of fit there? We want to play fast. We want to get up and down the floor because that's not really AD's play style, but it does give you this elite pick and roll threat to play alongside Haliburton and Siakam. And then your starting five could be something like Haliburton, Nembhard, Nesmith, Siakam, and AD. That's a really fucking good team. Really, really good. Now, the only problem is I went to the trade finder and it is next to impossible to try and figure that one out contractually, because obviously I don't think the Pacers would want to give up Siakam in that trade. That wouldn't make any sense for them. Obviously, Nembhard's probably off the table. So it's very difficult to make a trade happen there. But I kind of thought about that. But Gafford obviously makes sense. The Pacers have shown interest in Daniel Gafford. This one to me makes sense. Now, I will throw this out there, and I love Gaff. I love Big Gaffney. I love him. Jay Huff has not played poorly at all for Indiana. And I can't help but feel like he sort of fits their mold a little bit more than Gafford. So when I read that they're looking for their next starting center and a guy to pair alongside Haliburton next year to replace Miles Turner long-term, I don't know if I feel that it's Gafford, to be completely honest with you, because Jay Huff gives you the shot blocking, but he also gives you the floor spacing that you kind of had with those Miles Turner teams that helps him space the floor and just be a nightmare to guard. Gafford doesn't provide that, but he is a much better screen and roll threat than Jay Huff. I do find that interesting, and this does sort of feel like a pretty seamless fit. Like there is a Mathurin-Gafford trade there that makes some sense for both sides, right? This is one to watch moving forward. Once you start getting like specific teams for these role guys, that's when my ears perk up a little bit, because that means that there's some serious smoke, at least in my opinion. So I find this interesting for Indiana. One of my predictions right now that I'm rocking with. Let me know what you guys think about this. I think if it's a Zubats. And Shams kind of touched on the Clippers in this article, but there wasn't really anything interesting. Ivica Zubats, I think, will either be on Indiana or Boston this time next year. What do you guys think about that? I think it makes sense for the Clippers to try and trade Zubats. And I think, again, one of these Eastern Conference teams, I think the Western Conference teams really have to reconcile with the fact that they share conference with the Thunder. I know it's lame. I know you guys hate hearing it, but that's just the truth, right? Like, if I'm a Western Conference team, do I want to give up a future draft pick for Zubats? Like, if I don't think that pushes me over the hump, why would I do that? Versus if I'm a team out east, and it's like, yeah, maybe we wouldn't beat the Thunder in the finals, but hell, we could make the finals, and that's really cool. Maybe we get really lucky and something happens to the Thunder along the way, and then we have a real chance to win the finals. So I could see Boston, Indiana making a real push for Zubats. It makes sense for both teams. And be quite interesting. Would be a quite interesting fit. But I'm intrigued by this. And I like this. I think Indiana is probably going to... I think Indiana's going to make an aggressive move that surprises people just because of their record. But I think they're just forward-thinking and looking towards next year. They're not like a conventional rebuilding team, right? Like they want to go to the NBA Finals next year. And they have a pathway to get there, I think. Giannis stuff. Of course, we got to talk about the Giannis stuff. Stein said that people around the league think that a sweepstakes will indeed happen between now and the trade deadline for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Obviously, the Bucks season feels like it is spiraling quickly. They lost 2 in a row. Giannis is out with a calf injury. They've lost like 10 of their last 12 or some crazy shit like that. Giannis is out for the next like month, damn near. And by the time he comes back, what is even going to be left? Where are they going to be at? Now, they're in a shit conference, so maybe they still have a chance to make a play-in or even a push for the 6th seed, whatever the case may be. But will it even be worth it? Those are going to be the questions that Giannis is obviously asking. Sham said the Bucks locker room is starting to feel a tension between Giannis and the team. Never a good side. I will say I see this and I feel bad for Bucks fans because it's always like Shams is lying in an effort for ESPN to try and get Giannis out of Milwaukee. It's like, dude, maybe sometimes I agree with what you're saying. I do think there are instances, especially during the dead points of the offseason, where Wendy or Shams will like throw out the idea like, hey, Giannis could ask out soon. When they say stuff like that, like, hey, you never know, Giannis could be available. That's them trying to stir up the rumors and, hey, please tune into fucking NBA Today tomorrow. Like, please, God. We had 78 people watching our show yesterday that weren't, that where the TV wasn't on at an airport Chili's. Okay? Please tune into NBA Today. Please, God, do it. So that's kind of what it is. But this is a completely different thing. Okay? Deleting all the posts on social media, deleting every Bucks-centered post, and keeping every other post up. Honestly, one of the funnier things that's happened in quite some time. Like, I'm sorry. It's one thing to wipe your social media completely clean, whatever, right? But deleting every single post about a team and then keeping every other post up is hilarious to me. So fucking funny. But all of this talks about where they're going to have meetings. They're discussing, man, there's so much smoke here. It could fill a chimney. All right. Like something's going to happen. It just feels inevitable at this point. And it makes sense that there's maybe some tension in the locker room because this is just getting weird and bizarre. Like imagine just every day you're a Bucks player and you're opening up Twitter. And it's like Giannis thinks team's trash considering trade. It's like, oh, great. That's great. That's nice to hear. Right. So Sam Amick said this, and this is just him sort of speculating. At least I think so. He is kind of sourced, I think. But the Heat are a team to watch for Giannis Antetokounmpo if he can't land with the Knicks. If the Knicks think, I can't read. I just can't do it, guys. It's Texas Tech educate. Hey, we play sports. We don't study there. If the Knicks thing is too hard to execute, maybe he looks at Miami and tries to make that work. Again, that sounds like speculating, but that was my prediction. My prediction is if Giannis gets traded, I think it's to the Heat. There's just trade packages that make a lot of sense. If they manage to keep Bam, which I'm sure they would, if they manage to keep Hero, which part of the Hero thing is just like, would Milwaukee really want Hero in return? Obviously, if they do, if you're Miami, you would do that in a heartbeat. You just would. But that's a Miami Heat team that I think could legitimately win the conference with Bam and Giannis together. That is an incredible front court that I think plays off each other very well. So that would be pretty fun to watch. I just kind of think it makes the most sense to me, right? Like there are trade packages that actually make some sense. Now, some of the weird stuff about this reporting, and maybe it'll change if the negotiations really ramp up, but it does seem like, I forgot who mentioned this, if it was Shams or Stein or someone else, but it does seem like teams across the league have seen the Suns trade for KD. They've seen, maybe to a lesser extent, the Knicks trading for Mikal Bridges, and the Knicks are still good. Mikal Bridges has been good, but it's sort of limited their ability to do other moves. Like it has genuinely limited their ability to maybe make a play for Giannis right now. Because it seems like, if that Mikal Bridges trade doesn't happen, Giannis is almost certainly a member of the Knicks, you would think, if they have all their trade assets. So it does feel like teams might be looking across some of these big time transactions in recent years and be like, do we really want to do that? Have any of these worked? Have any of these panned out? Have any of these teams won significantly? I'm actually asking. I'm thinking about it now. Have any of them? Like the Thunder obviously never did. I'm just thinking about recent champs. The Thunder never made like this giant all-in trade. The Celtics made a couple big moves, but never like a one giant big all-in trade. The Nuggets never made a big all-in trade. Again, made small, like pretty, like they traded 2 firsts for Aaron Gordon. The Bucks, they kind of went all in for Drew. I don't know. I'm just talking out loud. Just rambling at this point. Oh, how about this one? This one's hilarious. Kings GM Scott Perry is trying to convince ownership that it could take another 3 to 5 years to turn the franchise around. So the Kings are kind of at an interesting crossroads because they clearly need to sell off pieces and tank. Their team's bad. Their team's old. Russell Westbrook's their best player. I mean, just watch any Kings game. And God bless Russell Westbrook. That's incredible for him. He's one of the, if it weren't for LeBron, we'd be talking about how absurd it is that Russ is still doing the stuff he's doing at his age. But in the year of our Lord 2025, soon to be 2026, that's pitiful. That Russell Westbrook is your best player. Absolutely pitiful. If I were the Kings, I keep seeing, well, Keegan Murray's, off the table. Why? Why would he be? If I took over as a Kings GM, there's not a single person on my roster I would not trade if the right package came across my desk. So obviously I want off Sabonis. I want off Zach LaVine. Please, God, someone take his ass. I want off this Malik Monk contract, who's been fucking terrible. I watched that Kings-Pacers game. I was like, God, Malik Monk sucked. I want off DeRozan. I want off all of these dudes. And you know what? If a team wants Keegan Murray, cool. Let's discuss. Why is Keegan Murray untouchable? What exactly would be the reasoning there? I don't understand it. I always get annoyed at that stuff. It's like, well, for the Pelicans, Trey Murphy's untouchable. Yeah, Trey Murphy is really good, but why would he be untouchable? Why exactly would he be untouchable? Huh? Anyways, let me know what you guys think. I did not 20 minutes. Jesus Christ. I thought this would be like a 9-minute video. My bad. What did I even say? I actually don't even know.